Thank you very much, Chair. And at the outset, can I welcome our guests? And indeed, I particularly want to personally welcome our former parliamentary colleague, Alan Chatter, here. I want to say that I agree with you, Chair, when you say, by way of introduction to the questioning session, that the committee is doing its best right through the process to be on the side of truth and objectivity. And I certainly know that you are, Chair, and I'd like to think that we as members are or should be. I suppose that there's a couple of things that need saying at the outset very quickly, because I want to get to the substantive things then that are in the amnesty report. But suggestions, and there haven't been made today, but suggestions that people who are critical of Israel or in some way anti-Semite could not be further from the truth. I can assure you of that. And I can also assure you that I was, as the distinguished chair here knows, at college I did history and enjoyed history, and I'm painfully and tragically aware of the history of the Jewish people, and there's no escaping that one. And that's a reality, and that obviously has been an issue and perhaps might have prevented some straight talking in the past, and does still, because nobody wants to deny that. Now, I suppose the essence of the points made in the amnesty report are some of the following things. I mean, I accept the point made that Israel as a state, for Israeli people living in it, is a model of democracy and is a very progressive modern state with liberal values, etc. But the real point here, amnesty says that there is a distinction between how Arabs within the Israeli state are dealt with, that that it's not quite as draconian there, they would argue, and although they do cite the Bedouin Palestinians in the Najab areas, and probably not pronouncing that correctly, but that their displacement, and they do cite that as an example of internal. But the real issue here, the real issue is not Israel itself, but the issue is the occupied territories, and that's what we're talking about. And I suppose we're talking about, first of all, the recent allegation that 5 million Palestinians, that there was a discrimination with the provision of the vaccines, which would be in breach of UN laws for occupied territories, that there was a distinction there. There's the question of the dispossession and the resettlements in that area, and a suggestion with that those dispossessions and those resettlements are making it impossible to have a two-state solution because of the nature of the way they're situated across the occupied territories, that you couldn't smoothly create a two-state solution unless you resettle the people who are settled there back into Israel, which would be a difficult situation. And it would be suggested that the purpose of that is almost to prevent a two-state solution, or that we may have to come up with another form of solution. There are issues. The amnesty report suggests, and this is also suggested in Michael Lynx's recent report as the UN rapporteur, that there are problems with water supply, with natural resources with electricity, with services like garbage collection, etc., in the occupied territories, that there's a discriminatory setup there, that there's military rule with checkpoints, with the whole discriminatory process there, that there is, as I said, the dispossession. And I mean, Gaza having one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, a sort of a complete different economic zone. And it is all these differences, a different type of human rights regime, a different type of administrative regime, a different type of services, a dispossession of people, a different type of an administration that leads to the charge of apartheid. And Amnesty suggests it on 3 levels. They argue it on 3 levels. It is supported by the UN report, and certainly I hope that you would be the first to say that we couldn't continue the present situation And I know that one of the great points, or one of the points you make, of course, is about the violence across from the occupied territory. Well, nobody supports that, but at the same time, I think the report that I think the response is totally over the top. And I think the response is it's providing a blanket sort of situation for discrimination. So just those are some of the arguments I would make initially to you, and I'm interested in the response. And we are genuinely in the business of finding out the truth here. And we are listening carefully to what you said. And I met the previous Israeli ambassador and had a very good meeting with them, and I have no problem with anything like that. We're not. This is not about the demonisation of any race of people, as Senator Crockwell said. This is about getting the right thing done, and I mean, I think it's not in Israel's interest, or it's not in humanity's interest, that the status quo and the level, the kind of states that exist with the 2 million people in Gaza, with the occupied West Bank, in Jerusalem, the kind of regime that exists there and the conditions that exist there, that they would continue, is not in the interest of humanity. And ultimately, as people we know only too well from this island, that do result in uproar, in constant flare-ups. So I'd like you to address those. Thanks, Chair. Thank you.